well, I'll just introduce myself and then you both can introduce yourselves and then we'll get this party started.
That sounds great.
For those of you who are joining us, I'm Courtney. I am the Study Abroad Manager, and we are here today to talk about the Prague, Czech Republic Summer Study Abroad program. So whoever wants to start, just introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm Leanne Chafee. I am a faculty member at UW-Tacoma, and I teach psychology courses. And I will be teaching the food and culture portion of our study abroad program.
And I'm Lisa Fleming. I am a faculty member at UW in the psychology program, and I will be covering the developmental portion of the study abroad, and we will be covering the development of children and covering a lot of culture from a non-Western perspective. So yeah, it should be interesting, and I'm excited to go to the Czech Republic and see everything in person.
Yes.
Definitely.
So for those of you who are here, you are welcome to ask questions in the question box or in the comments section. If y'all, Leanne or Lisa, if you know anybody here, if you recognize
I see my friends here. I don't see anybody who's actually a student.
That happened to me last year when I had to use my brother came in and kept putting in pizza emojis, and I was like, this is not professional. But welcome to anyone who's here. Why don't, for those of you who are here to learn about the Czech Republic, feel free to ask questions, but I'll start with my favorite question. And I don't think I actually included this in my list of questions with you both, so I hope I don't take you off guard, but what is it about Prague or the Czech Republic that has drawn you to, oh, there you go. Hi, thanks, Ashley. Sorry, read comments. What is it about the Czech Republic or Prague that has drawn you to wanting to lead a study abroad program there? And either
Lisa, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
You go first.
All right. Well, I have been fortunate to travel to Prague as sort of a side trip on multiple study abroad programs in the past. And while it's very conveniently located in Central Europe, it's unique and really special in a few ways. One is that it was behind the Iron Curtain. So there's this history of a communist past there that influences the current culture and kind of the understanding of the world, the food pathways, the psychology of the people. It's all very interesting. Two is the architecture is amazing there. It was spared from some of the largest amounts of damage during World War II. So there's Gothic and Baroque and then obviously contemporary architecture. Sometimes tour books call it like an architecture textbook because there's so many things there. I don't know. Those are my two biggest reasons, I would say.
Right. So in addition to everything that Leanne just said, part of the experience that we'll be doing will be focusing on the communist pathways and the effects of communism on just a different way of life, right? When we're talking about development and a non-Western perspective, it's interesting to be on the other side of the Iron Curtain and how Eastern Europe had a much different experience than several of the major populations you find in the United States and other parts of Western Europe. So exploring how that has affected everything from what you see, like she said, the architecture to the educational system to the food. And then we will be visiting the Terezin Holocaust Museum in person. We will also be discussing a lot of work done by Gabor Mate, who's a favorite of mine when we're talking about development and kind of getting at the root of some of the more non-traditional, non-Western ways of looking at development and attachment. And so we'll be exploring his personal history as growing up in Budapest, which is nearby. Hopefully, if we get a chance to go outside of the Czech Republic once the program ends, we'll also have suggestions on where to go while you're over in that area. You'll be able to take advantage after the actual program is complete. So that's another reason why the Czech Republic is so appealing to travel to because of the location. You can go, you're pretty much smack dab in the middle. So if you want to go west afterwards, you know, you've already paid for that ticket, you might as well continue to explore. So head west or continue to head east. You know, I know that Leanne's experienced like Croatia and Serbia and gone south. So that's kind of where I want to go when the program wraps up as well. So, you know, look at it from a holistic point of view. Don't just look at it as, oh no, it's just 2 weeks, you know, of actual study abroad. You know, plan accordingly and, you know, stretch your dollar as far as you can while you're over there.
Excellent advice. Yep. Agreed. Okay. Let's see. I've got another question for y'all. What are you most excited for students to experience?
We are working on a weekend trip where we will go to another part of the Czech Republic that I'm very excited about. So the Czech Republic is divided into the Bohemia region and the Moravia region, and then Prague sometimes is considered a little bit separate because it's such a metropolitan area. But we'll go into Moravia, into wine country, and have the opportunity to visit Brno and several wineries that are run by families, so we can see some differences in like the country way of life there. We have this amazing connection with folks who run a food tour business. They're right around the same age as Lisa and I, so they grew up. A lot of their like formative developmental period was during communism, and then one of them actually was a study abroad student to the US right around the time it opened up, and so he has really neat anecdotes about the differences that he observed. And so I think that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, but if you want to follow that particular group on Instagram, since you're here, I highly recommend follow Taste of Prague. Amazing. We're so fortunate that Leanne had fostered a relationship with these people years ago. And when they first started this food tour company, and they're on Instagram, but then they have since blown up. And luckily, Leanne has maintained this relationship with them, and we're still able to, you know, access their services and be able to book private tours with Jan as our personal tour guide, who's one of the owners of Taste of Prague. And just really, it's going to be an incredibly curated experience by somebody who really, truly knows. So that's something I think that we're really fortunate to have an in on, and will be unique and exciting. So that and the food itself, and Courtney, you can speak to this. The Czech Republic, Prague in particular, has had like a bit of a food renaissance over the last 15 or so years, where they're trying to return to the original roots of their food culture, you know, previous to communism. And so there's a lot of really cool, you know, similar to what's going on in the Pacific Northwest, where people are trying to be on top of, you know, authentic, sustainable food culture and reinvigorate old recipes and old ways of cooking. And so we get to experience that firsthand. And it's a super hip city. You know, Courtney's referred to it before as the Portland of the
Yes.
in a previous talk. So it's just not wrong, you know, it's very Seattle-like, it's very Portland-like in those ways, but, you know, take it back to the buildings being like from 1600. So it's just beautiful, stunningly beautiful. And we'll get to just experience all that.
It's also a lot more affordable than Seattle and Portland when it comes to dining, you know, fine dining and hip dining. So that's a nice plus.
Yeah,
Much
and
more affordable.
Transportation, like public transportation, it's super easy to get around. They have incredible trains. All of your transportation will be paid for with the cost of the program. So getting around will be safe, easy, and accessible.
Yeah. So if I may add, something that a lot of students I think don't consider when they're thinking about studying abroad, or rather thinking, well, I'll do this later in life, is, and of course you can travel, you know, anytime, but speaking from personal experience, when you are immersed in a place and have individuals who are experts there with you, your experience is so much richer and fuller and impactful than if you're just traveling somewhere. And also remember, we're going here and we're getting credits. You know, we're getting a quarter's worth of credits in an amazing place where, as you both said, you are knowledgeable and you are working with local individuals who've lived through this massive change from communism to capitalism. And that is hard to come by in lots of places where you're just a tourist. Speaking from experience, having lived in the Czech Republic for a long time, it took me a long time to meet people and sort of get those glimpses into the history of people's lives and communism. And y'all have an open door to that with Leanne and Lisa and the colleagues that they have in the Czech Republic. So I guess my point is, this is not an experience that's going to come around after graduation. This is something that you will not be able to have outside of a study abroad experience. So that's the difference between, and also I should add, as you said, Lisa, the things that are included, like the transportation, like some meals, like the trips, this is all curated for a reason, obviously, for your studies, excuse me, but it's also done in such a way where you're not having to figure this out, right? Like when you travel on your own, that is a huge part of the stress, right? Planning, paying. And one more thing I'll add about the food, or actually maybe my next follow-up question is, the Czech Republic, I don't think, is known worldwide for its cuisine. And I know when I moved there from France, and I was like, this is going to be terrible. Like, what am I doing going from France? And I grew up, I have Polish ancestry, and the food is sort of similar. So I was like, what am I doing? And I was shocked. I can't tell you how much I miss Czech food. And it's a lot harder to come by than French food, at least in this country. So with that, what is the food like? What is y'all's favorite food? And or how do you see the food sort of telling the stories that you all are hoping to tell with the program?
Yeah, I think there's two really important things, and one Lisa mentioned already. So during the period of communism, so until 1989, there was a book of standards that was one cookbook used by every cafeteria and restaurant in the country. Mm-hmm. And this meant basically the erasure of much of the like standard cultural practices around raising animals and different plants that are used for food. After that, it took a lot of time to recultivate what the national and the different regional cuisines were. However, now it's been enough time has passed that many of those have been recultivated. So when we're there, we'll visit, there's like a butcher and a sandwich shop next to each other, and they've recultivated these special pigs that existed prior to communism that were basically completely wiped out. And they had to like find a few that were left and breed them back up that are very important. And they're humanely cared for animals. They also have vegetarian options for those who are vegetarian. Additionally, then there's this, modern sort of hipstery food renaissance, and there's starting to be more international cuisine. The international cuisine that was there first were from other areas that had communism. So for instance, there's a lot of Vietnamese food there because of the kind of the similar political past. I think that's a fun thing about it. I don't know if I answered your question. I just was rambling.
Yes, you did. Well, maybe the last part could be, what is the food like, or what do you like about it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the food is going to be more rich, I think, than a lot of people anticipate. I think that because of the more modern influence and the fact that you can find pretty much like vegan food anywhere, you're not going to have trouble with that if that is a specific, dietary restriction you have. Although I would go into it knowing that this part of Europe is very meat heavy, very dairy heavy. I mean, most of the salads that you're going to find that are customary are going to have a mayonnaise base, right? Like it's going to be like on a potato salad out of potatoes. I mean, they eat like Jan will joke around that they eat hot dogs for breakfast, so it's very, it's a heavier diet. So if you aren't accustomed to eating meat, but you want to try things, prepare yourself maybe in advance for the richness of the food. Amazing pastries, right? On par with something along the lines of France. So it's just going to be incredible morning pastries, great coffee, all the luxury things that you like about living in a cool city that has access to world-renowned chefs and pastry artists. You're going to find that there. So it's going to have major wow factor. And then also you should talk about Plizen and the Pilsner. Leanne?
Oh, yes. So we're hoping to do another side trip to a region where Pilsner came from. And so Pilsner was developed in the town of Plzeň in the Czech Republic, and they have a nice factory tour, and it's still not completely the original factory, but the beer of the Czech Republic is Pilsner Urquell, and that's where it comes from. So we will have a chance to visit and tour their facilities.
And do a tasting.
And do a tasting, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Lisa also mentioned pastries. The cafe culture there is really similar to other parts of Central Europe. So these beautiful coffee houses with high ceilings, and some people talk about during the Enlightenment how intellectuals and politicians would meet in Central Europe in these cafes. And the idea was like the high ceilings and the caffeine brought these lofty ideas and some, kind of the academic renaissance of Eurocentric academic perspectives.
Gosh, I'm getting more jealous by the minute.
Yeah.
Very homesick. Yes. Let's see. Maybe we can pivot a little bit and talk about academics. So a lot of students like to get a better understanding of, how many credits they're going to be taking and what is involved. I think some students think that the coursework, I think it's sort of half and half. Some students worry that they're going to be just sitting like in a classroom the whole time, while other students worry, or maybe not worry, assume that it's going to be very chill and maybe more vacation-like. And I think we need to sort of set expectations somewhere in the middle. So if you could share a little bit more about that, that would be great.
Of course. We have this nice, I guess we could call it a hybrid program. That's different than how the word hybrid is used in a traditional class, where we'll be on UW-Tacoma's campus for, the first 6 weeks or so of the full summer term. And there it will feel a lot like the classes you've had in the past, probably discussion-based, right? Like a typical upper division psychology course. And these are 2 courses that are offered during the academic year, but we change the content, not the learning objectives really, but the content for study abroad. And so even if you've completed either of these courses, you are eligible to complete them and you can still earn the credits for study abroad. And then once we leave and travel, our academic coursework doesn't take place in the classroom, but for the final 2 weeks of the quarter, we'll be, traveling, and your assignments will look more like reflection papers, where we expect application of content from earlier in the course, and situating that in the experiences that you've had. However, there's not, tests and not classroom time. I am trying to set up a guest speaker when we are there. So there might be, one sort of lecture type situation, but for the most part, we won't be in the classroom.
Great.
Does that sound good, Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Just, I think the main takeaway is that we'll be, primarily completing the coursework before we leave on campus or remotely. And so what is it? 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Of that instructional design up front, like front loaded, and then we take off together and then do the actual study portion. And like she said, just reflection papers, like shorter things, more like journaling style things when you're actually abroad, as opposed to us going to a campus and sitting in lecture while in the Czech Republic.
And if I could add just about study abroad in general, and then more about the hybrid nature of your program, I think a lot of students don't consider the fact that being, in the Czech Republic or eating in a cafe or visiting Terezin or whatever is academic work, right? This is a part of the programming, and it can be a lot because you're there for a short period of time, and it can be sort of academically overstimulating, emotionally stimulating. So my point is, in a good way, my point is you're not just like chilling out in a cafe all day long. You're doing lots of things, but they are very coursework related. And they will, and the awesome part about y'all's program is this hybrid model, because not only are you learning content before, but you are preparing for your experience again, like emotionally thinking about how you know, what your expectations are beforehand as a group, how you're going to deal with whatever content that is new or, you know, terrible, for instance, with the concentration camp. Also thinking about your social identity and how that's going to play a role in your time in a country like the Czech Republic that is much more homogenous than, say, the US, right? All of these things you're preparing for in advance, which a lot of students don't get that much time to do that. So it's really awesome that y'all have that space to do that in. Can lead to a lot of growth in a short period of time.
Yeah, agreed.
Woo. Okay. Another question that a lot of students like to know about is, where are they going to be living while they're in Prague and the Czech Republic?
Well, I don't have a map pulled up, so but we are very close to the Old Town region, which is near like the main famous bridge in the center of Prague 1. And is that the district we're in, Leanne? I'm sorry, I don't have it up. So we are in Prague 1, right across the bridge from where our housing will be is several things that are major tourist attractions, as well as historical buildings and museums, lots of amazing restaurants, and again, public transportation is fully available. Yay! Thank you, Courtney.
So, right, this is Prague 1.
Mm-hmm. And I believe we're just a little bit south of the that main bridge right there. That's like
amazing Charles Bridge.
Mm-hmm. So we're within walking distance of so many things. And we got confirmation from Jan, who lives there and is from the Czech Republic and gives the food tour, that that we have a great location. So it's verified. We looked into several locations and this was by far the best. It is going to be a situation where each student, we have ideally 20 students, will be paired up in rooms together. So you'll have a roommate, but you each will have your own bedroom within the unit. So you will have privacy. You won't be staying together kind of like in a bunk bed situation, like as if it were a hostel. So you will have your own private bedroom within a 2-room apartment. So rather than it being an actual hotel stay, this is like apartment living. We're just in a short-term rental. The outside of the building is beautiful, old Baroque. I believe it was built in the 1700s, but don't hold me to it. It's like a pale blue building with all this amazing artwork or like built into the structure. Lots of detail, cobblestone roads, fountains across the street. And we will have all that information as far as like where you can get the actual address and Google it. I believe it might be on the website. No,
not yet.
Yeah, it's called the Royal Prague Apartments, I believe. So you can Google that and take a look for yourself. So it's not like luxury accommodations, right? This is a college program, but it's really nice.
It's important to remember. Excited. Yeah, they're fantastic. Lisa found them, and I think they're perfect, especially for the location. It's awesome. They're short-term apartments instead of a hostel. I think that's a great, great benefit of the program. One thing that's important to remember is apartments in Europe are different than apartments in the US. They're not as spacious, particularly the bathrooms are not as spacious. The storage is not as spacious. So yeah, it's not a hotel. Yes. It's like a kind of a cramped apartment, I think, is how, I don't know, Lisa, does that sound right? Like, it's not humongous.
Yeah. Space, like America is very known for spaciousness, right? We like large freeways, we like big cars, we like large homes. Square footage is important to Americans, whereas you go to Europe and you're going to find out that that's not the case. And so they use a lot. They use a lot more in a small space. So you still get a lot of value, but it's just not going to have the square footage that you may anticipate. But you will have your own privacy, like I stated. Also too, like the design, right, is a little funny, you know, it's not quite the same type of style as American design. So if you see bright colors or you see things mismatched, or it looks kind of minimalist and somewhat modern, but not quite all the way. Like
that's very Czech.
Yeah, very old and new juxtaposed together. Get ready for that. There's not a lot of harmonious design. So it's just kind of like, it's just kind of funny. I think it's just great. One of those little things that's like quirky when you go abroad and experience something different.
Exactly. That's really indicative of communism and then a sharp left into capitalism.
Yeah.
I think that's like very, I think your students and you both, I'm sure, have noticed that is a really interesting juxtaposition in the Czech Republic and Prague, especially. Like, there's just not a lot of in between. It's just one or hardcore the other. Like, just a funny anecdote. I used to teach there, and a lot of the grandmas would come and pick their kids up after school. And I would say 50% of these grandmas had purple and pink hair. And I was like, what is happening? And then one of my colleagues was like, we couldn't dye our hair. We weren't allowed to dye our hair a non-natural color. So now everyone's like going wild, right, in their 70s. So it's just an interesting anecdote if you think about it culturally, psychologically, about, you know, what these people have been living through, and then how it was a hard shift to something else. Okay, let's see. It is 7:56. Let me check my questions. I have two more. Do you have a few extra seconds, or do you need to go right at 8?
No, go
okay.
for it.
I have time.
2 questions. What about free time? Students want to know, you know, often how much free time they have, what leeway they have. Could y'all explain anything about that?
Yeah. You know, since we're there for a short period of time, we are quite busy. We do have a few days, 2 days built in or so between when we have the last class to when you'll be there. So there's a little bit of time there. Maybe it's 3 days. The last class on campus to when we expect to meet up in Prague. And then we have about 1 activity planned per day. Some of those are a museum that's in town, so it doesn't take long to get there. And then, we do the museum for another few hours, chat afterwards, maybe get some lunch in small groups. So it'd be like a half a day. Others are trips out of town when we go to Terezin, the, preservation of the concentration camp, or to Plzeň. And so then it would be a full day that's full. There isn't no more than 1 activity a day. So at least the evening or half the day would be free time. Does that sound about right, Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at the calendar schedule, it on paper looks like a lot because there's an event listed just about every single day. But like Leanne stated, only the ones where we're like traveling outside of the city or going for an overnight will really be super time consuming. That would be the only time that you would kind of be together for the majority of the day and or part of the evening. But even when we go on, let's say, the trip to Brno, where we're staying overnight in a hotel in that city, there's a cutoff point towards the end of the night where we're done with the tour. You go back to your hotel room and it's up to you what you want to do. So you should always have your evenings to yourself, right? And I don't think we'll have some ungodly hours in the morning. I know Leanne and I don't want to get up super early, not have coffee and be ready to go to a museum, right? So we're going to be working, within normal constraints of time that you would for a class. Nothing too crazy early and nothing too crazy late.
Perfect. Well, my last question then is, what's one piece of advice that you'd give a student who's thinking about your program?
Apply.
Yes. Let me add to that, because it doesn't cost any money. You can apply to as many programs as you want. This is not an opportunity that comes your way after graduation, et cetera, et cetera. You really don't lose anything by applying.
Yeah, this is an anecdote I tell over and over again. But when I was an undergrad, I wanted desperately to study abroad, and it was way too expensive. My scholarship didn't cover it. It didn't really fit into my academic schedule, and so I would have to prolong graduation. It just wasn't going to happen. And I told myself, I'll travel afterwards. Well, then I went to grad school, and then I decided to be an academic, and I didn't really start traveling until I started teaching study abroad at UW-Tacoma. And I hope that that's not everyone's experience, but we have a variety of programs at UW-Tacoma, and many of them are structured in a way that fit well in degree programs. And there's many grants and financial aid opportunities available, and it is far more inclusive than study abroad is nearly everywhere else.
Yeah. You can get financial aid. It covers the full 12 credits, so it still fits into your full-time academic status in order for you to apply for financial aid. I highly recommend also if you're a senior and this is kind of like your last shot at doing something like this, treat yourself, like do it. Even if that means taking an extra quarter, like this
Agreed.
is summer quarter and you're already like done, you're gonna graduate, right? You might as well just add it on, like icing on the cake, and really get like this experience out of it, because it's so worth it. And you'll still get that credit. You're still going to be able to qualify for financial aid, and like Leanne stated, there's at least, I believe, 3 different grants that you can apply for that most of our students qualify for, and they offer a range of different, I think it's like anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 that you could qualify for, and you can apply for all of them. You know, if you meet most of the qualifications. I know that most students qualify for at least 2 of them, and you can acquire both. You can apply and receive both. It's not just one or the other. So you could get like $2,000 just to start your journey on the study abroad. So it is accessible, and hopefully students just apply.